Hey guys, come on in the room. Come on in the room. Hey guys, this is Brenda. How you guys doing today? Let's have a conversation. As you know, um, October is Domestic Violence Month. I'm an advocate for domestic violence is because I was in a domestic violent marriage and for 10 years. And I think we uh, take domestic violence in the wrong way. Like we think, um, well, if she's getting beat, she's in a domestic violent relationship. But there's so many parts to domestic violence, and we never talk about that. We only deal on the fighting side. We don't deal on the verbal side, the mental side, the stressful side. It's all kind of parts that go to domestic violence. Um, as you see, the topic is let's get to the root. Um, let's get to the root is I had a conversation with one of my spiritual guidings here, and we was talking about getting to the root. And the getting to the root for me was like I was married for 10 years, and as you a lot of people found out that it was a very bad marriage. He was beating me, he was doing everything to me. But then I had to go back and think about it. Like, why did I accept his behavior? It just didn't start when I got married. Domestic violence started way before I got married, because if I go back and I do my homework, as we should do homework on ourselves and understand why did I accept a broken marriage, or why did I accept domestic violence in my marriage. But I had to go all the way back to my childhood to where, and I'm going to be very honest, and I know I got my family on here, but it's time to come clean. Um, my domestic violence started when I was a kid, when I was molested as a kid by my uncles, my cousins, people in the neighborhood. Yeah, it's out there now. But it started then. So it just didn't start, it started with people talking crazy to me, people mistreating me. So when I got married, I accepted the behavior because I was already familiarized with that spirit and with that topic of I didn't get to the root of it. So I was already toxic before I got married. So when I got married, it was like, okay, I accept his behavior. I accept what he's doing to me because I learned bad behavior when I was a child. But I didn't deal with it as a child. So when it came to me as an adult, I accepted it. And I stayed into it for 10 years because I never dealt with the issue. The issue was it started before I got married. It started years and years for if I can go back, it started when I was like 3, 4 years old. And I know a lot of people's like, how do you remember that far back? And I'm glad you asked, because I've been watching what's going on in the media with the Supreme Court guy who's running for nomination. And one thing Dr. Ford said is that when they asked her a question, what can you remember about the date? And she said, I remember the laugh. I remember how they laughed at me when, and they held their hand over my mouth and just laughed at me. And as a victim or a person that went through that situation, each person that raped me, I can tell you exactly what I remember about those days. I can remember about what my uncle had on, what my cousin had on, uh, what chair we were sitting in. It was a trigger point. Everybody has a trigger point if you dealt with stress and if you dealt with domestic. Like there's a trigger point somewhere, and you have to get to the root of where did it start. My domestic violence started in when I was a kid. In the in the African American family, we're taught that what happens in the family, it stays in the family. I bind that demon because it's a lie. Because then you get people that grow up, and because they never dealt with that behavior, it's called a generational curse. They just keep it going and keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. You cannot keep it going. At some point, you got to stop that demon. You got to deal with that demon, because if you deal with it, your kids will be able to deal with it. If you deal with it, their kids will never have to go through what you go through, because you stopped it at the head. You got to the root before it exploded. So my advice to y'all is get to the root. Get to the root of the problem. Get to the root of where did the domestic started. It didn't start when you got in a relationship with somebody. It just did not start there. It started somewhere. Get to the root. That's all I have to say. Get to the root of where your domestic violence started. It started somewhere. Deal with it. Get counseling. Go get help. Talk about it. Because you got to stop this generational curse of it just accepting people's behavior and accepting what goes on in your life like it's just happened to me. It didn't just happen to you. You have to get to the root. You have to. Because the root is where your deliverance at. If you want to stay away, it's okay. But if you want to be delivered, you got to get to the root. You have to get to the root of the problem. Some stuff happened to me in the church when I was a young kid. And I know we're not supposed to put the church on blast, but I'm putting it on the table. Because that's the problem. We cover up the sin. And we cover up. And we never get delivered. We never get healed. And we carried it on from generation to generation to generation. I can't do that anymore. Get to the root of where your domestic violence started. It did not start in your adulthood. It started years ago. You got to get to the root. I love you guys. And I'm going to come on and I'm going to do another one. Not today. Throughout this month, I'm going to talk about some topics that nobody wants to talk about. So get to the root of where your domestic violence started. Thank you guys for watching me. I see my cousin Pam on there. She is my biggest supporter. Karen. I see my little cousin Donna on here. I see Bruce on here. I see Terry. Hey, Tony. Greg. Lucky. My little niece. And my cousin Denise. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Do me a favor. Get to the root of where it started at. Domestic violence did not start in your adulthood. It started somewhere. Get to the root. I love you guys. Stay blessed. Now let me figure out how to stop this thing.